we're going to open it up to a Q&A session, so if anybody has any questions for them, they can feel free to ask. I know you guys are very nervous, but just remember, there aren't any parents, so you guys can ask any questions. Anybody? Yeah.
It was mentioned that you had the big final project. What, I suppose I'm asking about the entirety of that project. Did you choose your own topic? Was it kind of a thing where you talked about what you learned, or did you go on your own interests with your team kind of related to your cluster, but on your own? Just what were the requirements and experience with the final project?
Like the final project itself, as stressful as it may seem, like, you know, a big final project and whatnot, it wasn't terribly stressful. It was, you get to actually, within your cluster, you get to choose a specific topic typically, like, let's say, for me, I was in Right Ideas, right after work. My final project dealt with LCD screens. We took an LCD screen and made it into a projector. So, I mean, that was only one of the few choices. Other projects that were in that cluster was also using lasers to transfer sound and data and stuff like that. So, depending on what cluster you're interested in, there's multiple topics of what you may be interested in. You may be able to choose with your group, or might be paired up. It depends on what cluster you're in. But the final experience was actually really rewarding. You learn more than you think you would, and it's just something that you can say you did, and it helps definitely like help your college like applications and stuff like that.
Someone else have a question? Yeah.
Like throughout the clusters, does it involve both math and science, or just specific like topic?
So you're asking if all the clusters involve both math and science? Yeah. Okay.
Well, when you go on the website, each one has like a different kind of specialization. Like my cluster was cluster 2, and it said recommended physics course, and we were mostly physics. And even if you hadn't taken it before, our teacher fellow explained it like perfectly fine, so you understood what was going on. But it kind of depended on which one.
So just to elaborate a little bit on that, when you apply for Cosmos, if you look on the websites and on the flyers we have upstairs, it actually specifies some of the prerequisites. For some clusters, you have to have taken, for example, 1 year of physics or 1 year of biology. But to answer your question, they're kind of separated. They're not necessarily, each cluster has both elements to it.
So then, do you, like, say you're going into high school, then what if you don't have that experience of physics?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people in my cluster hadn't taken physics, like at all, and they were a little lost at first, but then our teacher fellow explained it like perfectly fine, so then they understood what was going on.
Okay, I'm also going to let our Assistant Director, Becky Haynes, answer this question.
If there's a prerequisite that's listed and you haven't taken it, you probably won't get considered for the cluster. If I have another student that took physics and you didn't, the student that took the prerequisites is going to get in. So that may not be a cluster you want to apply for if you haven't met the prerequisites, or maybe you want to wait a year or two before you've taken those courses, because you'll be lost. You'll be behind, and we move very quickly in 4 weeks. So you really need to pay attention to what the prerequisites. They might say preferred, which means you don't have to have taken it. It could say physics preferred, which I think it does for cluster 2, it's preferred. But then there's some like cluster 5 that Kelly was in that you do need to take physics, or it will be a struggle for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to go into the ocean climate change cluster. They said you need a swimming test. I know how to swim, so when do I take the test?
There's a form that if you get accepted, we'll have you go to a lifeguard that can authorize that you are able to do certain things like tread water for a certain amount of time, swim a certain, because you will be in the water in that cluster. You will be in the water, I promise you that. So if you can't swim, don't apply for that cluster. We have students that say, oh, I learned to swim for the cluster. No, that doesn't work. So you need to know how to swim before you apply.
Yeah, right here.
What kind of things do you do in engineering design cluster?
Okay, so our first week we made a clock, which it wasn't really like a clock, it was like a pendulum, and we all could design our own, so it was really cool because everyone's looked different. It had like a different face on it. And then for the rest, in our final project, we made like a roller coaster for a marble, which we all had different ideas on how it went, so it was really open-minded, and ours was like pachinko, where the ball like drops down and goes different directions, and then the bottom it had a basket that someone could come and play and try and catch the pachinko ball at the bottom. And it was really cool because so many people had crazy ideas, and they would do whatever to get what you needed for your project, and it was really fun. I really liked it. I recommend it.
Yeah, the one in the purple.
Okay, so I know they had kind of a rundown of what a week would be like for you and what the schedule was like. Can one of you guys give us an idea of what it actually was like to have that schedule every day?
So in the mornings, you'd go to, I'm not sure how it is for all the clusters, but for mine, you went to lecture/lab in the morning, and then after lunch, you had that too. And then I think around 4 o'clock is you had some free time before dinner. And then after dinner, there's a lot of different activities you could do every day. I know one popular thing that's always like friendship bracelet making. Yeah. and there were dances sometimes on the weekends, and what else is there?
Soccer. We had a Harry Potter day, which was really fun actually. Like we went and people played Quidditch in the quad, and then there was a movie, and it was really fun. The RAs plan like 5 different things that you can do every night, and they're like completely different. They range from like, we did hennas one night, and like every night there's a sport. Like ultimate frisbee was a lot of the time, and soccer, and it was always a different experience every night. It was really fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously you couldn't get graded, but how do you measure progress? Or like how are you testing?
I don't really think there's any test, but for my cluster anyways, we had presentations. So we would have labs. So mine was more on the science side, so we would have protocols. So every morning, just going off of the schedule again, we would get a lecture by our professor. And he was actually a bioengineering professor, so he would teach us what exactly we would be doing in the lab today, like the protocol, explain everything. And we would split out into groups and basically go down to lab, do our experiments, collect the data. And the teacher assistants actually come into role here because for ours, they collected our lab notebooks at the end of the day or whatever it was. And they would actually grade your notebook, not like grade, but they would give you feedback as to what you did well, what you should improve on, and things like that. And it's really, there were some labs where your data is just totally skewed and it's like completely messed up, but the teacher won't like penalize you for it or anything. It's just, you should do this is what you did wrong kind of thing. And I think the ultimate kind of test would be all this work kind of works up to your final project. So you need to kind of get into the flow and like understand what you're doing for the whole of like 3 weeks, because the 4th week you're going to be doing your final project. And if you didn't really understand what was going on for the last 3 weeks, you wouldn't really do well on it. So that's how it works.
Any other questions that you might have? Yeah.
So say you're already taking a kind of lab-based course like AP Biology or something where it's mostly based around labs, and there's a lot of distraction from other classes. Would you say that it's kind of similar to taking an AP Science course like that that's lab-based, except not like, oh, well, I have my English homework and stuff like that? Would you say it's kind of like that, or how is it different from that?
Actually, taking AP classes is really helpful. So yeah, like you said, it's very true. You don't really have distractions, I guess you can say, on your subjects. So yeah, you would be spending your whole day kind of doing the AP Bio stuff that you would want to do. So it's really fun. You get to run gels and like get to learn cool things like that. It's nice.
We have another question?
I was wondering, Dana, could you talk about your experience with the waiting list? I think that would be good.
Yeah. I applied to the 3 clusters and I got on the waiting list for them. And then the day before Cosmos, I got this call. I live 10 minutes from here, to come to the molecular biology cluster the next day for 4 weeks. So that was a really interesting experience. And I considered not going, but I actually did, and I'm really glad I did because it was a really good experience. So even if you're on the waiting list, just have faith that you'll get called back.
If you're with a really popular cluster like Dana was with anything that has to do with biology 10s, and also Ellie's cluster, cluster 2, we have over 100 students apply. If you get on the waiting list, don't lose hope, because for the cluster that Dana was on, we went through our entire waiting list. Every student that was on the waiting list ended up getting in. So, plans change, students change their mind. The student that she replaced broke her ankle the night before Cosmos, or the day before Cosmos, so that's how Dana got in.
Could you describe sort of the application process, how you prepared, how you kind of judged when you're finally ready to say, all right, I'll actually turn it in, not being all perfectionist with it?
I'm trying to remember this, but a few years ago, but I think the application process for mine, it was 3 essays. So I did an essay for, I actually applied to 3 clusters, knowing that I probably get to one of them. So I did 3 essays for all the 3 clusters I applied to, which was, I think, molecular biology, cluster 7, cluster A, and the computer one. And then I actually selected 2 math teachers. I don't know if you can do that this year, but can you do that this year, Becky? 2 math recommendations?
1 math, 1 science.
Yeah, I actually did 2 math, but I think that you did this year, but. So I actually selected a teacher that knew me really well. Like, he had to speak about me, like what was my where I excelled in math and science. So I actually selected 2 teachers. So there's 2 recommendations, 3 essays, and another essay was why I wanted to go to Cosmos. So like I just spoke about like my passion for science and how I always wanted to do engineering, and I spoke to that and just like threw it from my heart. So you need to speak to that and just like, say it in your own words. It's like a really personal statement. So I think it was 2 recommendations, 3 essays, and is that all?
And then the general essay, yeah.
And then a general essay.
One important thing to remember is when we ask for your transcript, we need an official transcript, so it can't just be one that you attach yourself. It has to be in a sealed envelope. We have a question? Yeah.
What do you do in the molecular biology cluster?
I was in the molecular biology cluster last year, and this year the clusters are a little different. So cluster 8 is a medicine cluster, I think it was this year. But when I was in molecular biology, we did a lot of different things, and we learned about bioinformatics, metagenomics, things like that. And so one of the things we did is once we sequenced our own DNA to look at what a gene was for one tasting gene. And then also one of the best things we did is we took different soil and biofilm samples and we looked at what kind of bacteria were in those. And also one thing we did is we got to do a little bit of research for colony collapse disorder. We analyzed the DNA of certain honeybees that were disappearing, and so that was pretty interesting too.
Yeah.
When you're selecting your recommendations, does it have to be your most current teachers, or can it be teachers from the past?
It could be, if you're in high school and you're a junior, you could pick a freshman teacher if they really would say the best things for you. So I wouldn't recommend a middle school teacher if you're an 11th grader. That's probably, I would be suspect if I saw that on an application. But if you're in 11th grade, you pick a 9th grade instructor, that's fine.
Yes, so if you're in 9th grade, then you can pick a teacher issue that was probably in 8th grade, but if you need to go back maybe a grade before then that'll be okay. Anybody else have any questions? Yeah.
What was your main purpose for joining Cosmos? Was it like for experience or was it for like the college application forms and all that?
Maybe each student could answer that.
Well, I really liked, mostly for me, like understanding what I was really applying for, and it ended up being like more than that because it's all, I'm so ready now next year to meet so many new people and live in the dorm, and I might have been a little scared at first, but now I've experienced meeting completely people that I don't talk to, and now I'm more comfortable with it, and now I know what I got myself into because all of my classes are basically going to be these kind of people that because I'm applying as engineering, so, you know, it was like good in both ways.
The reason I applied was actually because one of my friends introduced Cosmos to me. She was planning on applying to it. But for me, like personal benefit, it was just like it's something to do over summer. Because most summers, like for me, I would just not do much at all. So I thought it would be a nice experience. It was also just to like maybe get a head start in college. Because when I applied, it was the summer before my senior year. So I figured it would be like something like a college experience, hopefully. I know like I read about how a lot of UCs, they consider, if you do Cosmos, they consider it an application that might help you. But I mean, generally, to me, now all of that doesn't matter too much. It's more, the experience itself was just valuable and just to meet some people with.
So the main reason I did it was for the experience too. Like, I wasn't really sure if I wanted to major in or go into molecular biology, but after Cosmos, I really figured out that I did, and you learn a lot what it's like maybe to be a scientist or some similar field. And also, it's just a really good pre-college experience, which is why I went. And it does help this isn't why I went, but the whole college application process, a lot of the times you have to say why you're interested in science, and so Cosmos is a really good thing to talk about.
Yeah, actually, just going off of what you said, because I was a boarding scholar, I actually use that on my college apps, and that helped me a lot. Because it's something very new, very unique, and that's another reason why I choose UCSD, and I still go back to the dinners. It's a lot of fun because I just get to network and all that good stuff. And the professors and people that I met, actually, I met Alex in Cosmos and we're really good friends, and we go to the same university. And I actually know a lot more people through Cosmos who are in UCSD, and letting also be professors, which was really helpful for me coming back to UCSD. And in general, it's just a fantastic experience. I'm out here again trying to get all of you to come back and come to Cosmos, because it really is worth your time, and it's 4 weeks that you will not regret. And more than the experience, like the college life and things like that, it's really what you want to do, because you can talk to other people in other clusters. Let's say I'm in like biological motivations cluster, and I want to really know what electrical engineering is all about. I can always go and talk to them, and the professors are very approachable, which is probably the best time to get to know what college professors are like, because they do have office hours, so you can just go up to them and talk to them, and it's a great experience just to know the professors and things like that.
I think the reason I selected Cosmos was, I think, for the engineering aspect, because I never knew what engineering was all about. So I went to Cosmos, I networked with a lot of professors. I remember just going to one of the professors on the Tuesday lecture, and she was just talking about like the computer architecture. And I actually went to her office hours during that time, and now we speak a lot, and I go to office hours, and I actually wanted to research for her. So I think it motivated me to be able to go talk to professors, because I know a lot of freshmen now that don't go to office hours. They just go to office hours, go to office hours. They don't go as freshmen at UCSD. And I think I'm only one few who go to office hours to get help. And I think Cosmos really did that for me, network me, it like made me a new person basically. And I also like I talked about Cosmos in my personal statement, how it like was my new passion, and I think that's why I got to UCSD because of Cosmos.
Alex also mentioned a little bit about how before he applied to Cosmos, he didn't really know what engineering was. It's the same case with me, it's the same case with a lot of people. Maybe somebody can talk a little bit about our discovery lecture. Sometimes we do have speakers come in. For example, I believe last year we had a panel of women in engineering. So if somebody wants to talk a little bit about that.
Okay, so we had 4 lectures, and okay, there was one really cool one about, it's kind of like Bing, but you type in this guy's turn to try to make this thing do this, and you type in what kind of music that you like, and it'll come up with like choices for you. But so you type in like a dance song with a jazz like remix to it. So then it would try and take pieces of like the notes and try and mix it with jazz. And it was really kind of complicated, but it's really cool to hear about what people are actually trying to do. And there's another one on battery.
Yeah, like there was one they were talking about computer batteries and how it works. So how to have it last longer by not using all the battery. It was really interesting.
The lectures like help you know what actually is going on in engineering besides like what you learn in your class. So it's more like practical about today because you don't really hear about it in like day-to-day basis, but they really help you know what they're actually doing.
Yeah, and then at these lectures, you also get a chance to talk and speak with a meet and greet these speakers, and so you can ask them further questions, maybe more specific questions. So that's also one way.
Kelly, can you talk about like the friendships you made? You talked about Facebook, but can you talk about like the reunions and stuff that have gone on since then?
So after my Cosmos year, we had one of the students my year. He actually planned a reunion for December after. So about 6 months. He put a lot of effort into it to get people to come. It was actually here back in San Diego. It was a really great experience. Cosmos actually helps fund like some of your food and costs and stuff like that. It was pretty nice. It was cool because they actually had like people come all the way from the Bay Area to come back just for a reunion, just to like meet with the people they went to Cosmos with. And it's just nice seeing like how friendships stay together. So like if you come to Cosmos, you're definitely going to meet people from all over California. They might not live near you, but you'll be surprised on how you stay connected and how much you talk to them. My residents this past year, who were students this past summer, I know they still meet up. Like maybe I see pictures on Facebook all the time of them meeting up, getting together. So it's like you meet people that you'll never think you'll meet, and you become the best friends. But it's amazing.
Yeah.
How important is GPA and extracurriculars in the application process?
You look at me. If I have a student that has a higher GPA, but then they'll probably have a better chance. But if everything else is equal, I'm going to look at the GPAs because if they have everything else in common. But I have had students that maybe their GPA wasn't as high as another, but they had essays, or they did some research on their own and went to a science fair and went all the way up to regionals or something, and that will catch our attention. The faculty pick the students. My staff and I screen and make sure everybody has complete applications and that their prerequisites are good. And then we send those on. So say they take 24 students, they'll look at 50 and pick from there. So you want to have a really strong application, but I've had some students that are 3.0s that have gotten into some of my clusters and, and it's changed their life. And because their essays and their teacher recommendations were so amazing, I couldn't ignore them. I had to pass them on to faculty and they were selected. So GPAs are important, but they're not everything. But if everything else is equal, it could make a difference. Okay, also your age. If I have a 9th grader, a student that's going to be a 9th grader, a student that's going to be a 12th grader, and everything's equal, I'm probably going to take the older student because I know the younger one can apply again, where I know the other one, the older one, might not. So it does, 50% of our students are going to be, they're 11th graders now and going to be 12th graders, about 50%. I only took one 8th grader last year who was going to be a 9th grader. Took one, that was it. So if you're an 8th grader, you might want to think and maybe apply the next year when you have more classes under your belt.
For the teacher recommendation thing, is it kind of like the same with colleges where it's like, ooh, envelope, hush, hush, you don't know what it says? Or is it just like, oh yeah, shoot me an email? Like, how exactly is that supposed to work?
It's done confidentially. You won't, unless the teacher shares it with you, you won't see it. So you won't get to see it. So it's all confidential. Unless you ask the teacher if they let you know what they wrote, so you won't see it. I have had teachers say, I don't know the student, I don't know why they have me as a recommender. And I take the file and I put it to the side. So make sure they know you, please.
All right. Do we have any last minute questions? No? If not, we're going to wrap it up. Right now, I would like to have you guys remain seated while I thank if we can all thank the panel.